Thank you very much. Appreciate everyone being here. The greatest generation. It's a coined term by Tom Brokaw talking about our World War II generation, specifically our veterans, of course. But it's that senior generation that when you look around the world, the rest of the world respects our elders. We take care of them. Well, they take care of them. But I've realized something over the last few years, that here in our country, we really don't. We go see our grandparents and this kind of thing, but everybody here has a grandparent, a grandfather, a grandma. And what we often do is we take these elderly that we say we can't take care of, and we put them in a home somewhere, hopefully a good home, right? We do some research, and we say, Grandpa, see you later. I'll see you next Sunday for brunch, and we walk away. We don't take care of our generation. So what Honor Flight has taught me is how to take care of our generation. So I want to share that today a little bit. I also want to take a little bit of a focus on, we consider ourselves storytellers as inbound marketers, as marketers. But what would happen if we were story listeners? I like what Dave said about being better listeners. What if we were better listeners and then story retellers? I found that these men and women have some absolutely amazing stories to tell, and that if we can listen to them, we get to have their legacy live on, right? So Talon's Out, Honor Flight. Who are we? We are a local organization in southern Michigan that honors World War II veterans from our area, with an all-expense-paid trip to Washington, D.C. We consider every day Veterans Day. We know that our country wouldn't be what it is today without this generation. And we operate under the Honor Flight national network. So Talon's Out takes care of our own little area, but there are more than 130 hubs across 40-some states across the country. So what I'm talking about today when I talk about Talon's Out is really a movement across the entire country. 1,000 veterans from the World War II era every day pass away. That's 1,000 storytellers every day that we lose. And these men and women have stories. We've had stories from guys who went overseas and met their wife, to men and women who come back and they tell stories about, there was one guy in particular, Smitty. Smitty is in our area in little southern Michigan, Kalamazoo, Michigan, and he was a radio man back in World War II. And the USS Indianapolis was a ship that was involved with taking parts for the bomb that bombed in Japan. The ship, when it left, went radio silent, but the last message they sent before they left was sent to Smitty. And it was basically just, we're on our way. Not soon after, that ship was sunk by a Japanese torpedo. And out of the 1,000 men that were on that ship, several hundred survived, but then most of them died in the water. And it's one of the most deadly shark incidences in the world, because sharks were there and they took a lot of these men. To this day, Smitty lives with that, and he says to us when we met him, I could have done so much more. To this day, he lives with that. Now, we were able to honor him and to tell him that it's okay, we appreciate what you did. You did everything that you could, and this kind of a thing. But those stories, 1,000 of those are lost every single day because we lose our World War II veterans. What's really cool is that more than 100,000 veterans since the inception of Honor Flight in 2005, actually it's more than 150 now, 150,000, have been flown to DC to thank them for their service. We get to hear these stories every day. We get to hear the stories from the veterans, from other honor flights. We tell these stories, and we honor them for what we do. And this is a picture here of the Wall of Freedom at the World War II Memorial. Now, I don't know about you, but when I think of a World War II veteran, I think of this older man sitting in that wheelchair, frail, 90 years old. This Wall of Freedom right here, every star on that wall represents 100 lives lost in World War II. And so out of the 400,000 lives lost, I think of this old man, who might be on oxygen, who has to have a wheelchair, who talks kind of loud because he can't hear so well. He looks at that wall and he sees the 18-year-olds that went to war and didn't come home. And so this man still lives with that in this generation, and he sits in his house or in his nursing home, doesn't talk to anybody. And so Honor Flight is what talks to him. And this is my favorite part. On an Honor Flight, we come home, and our community comes out and they welcome them. Thousands of people come out, and they talk to these veterans, and they get to shake their hands and this kind of thing. But this is so much more than just our senior generation. So I want to connect with the senior generation. I want our elderly, our seniors, our 90-year-olds to feel appreciated, to feel still remembered, because we've had that. We've had them come home from this and say, I had no idea my family still cared. And the family says, we had no idea that Grandpa was in the war. So because they've never talked to each other. And so this is what that does. But beyond the greatest generation, this is what I want to share. We had an Honor Flight here in New England that was going to bring a veteran with me, and it ended up not working out. But he shared with me a story, the head of this Honor Flight, and he said that he had an Iraqi war veteran come to him and say, I want to take my grandpa on this flight. And they were talking about it and how to make this happen and everything else. And Joe is with Honor Flight New England, and Joe shared with me that at the end of the conversation, this veteran said, I need this. And we hear that kind of thing quite a bit when we talk to these families, that Grandpa needs this, I need this. So it just kind of washed over Joe, and he kept it in the back of his mind. They go on the Honor Flight, they come home, had a great day. A few months later, they have a reunion, and they all get together in this big room like this, and they share stories, and they pass the mic around, and this Iraq war veteran stands up and gives some memories of the day, and then he says, the most important thing I think that I take away from this entire thing, this program, and he points at Joe, this man saved my life. Joe thought, I saved your life. He said, before I went on this Honor Flight, I was contemplating suicide. So I was this close to it. Got 3 kids at home under 7. The war messed with me so bad. I go to the VA, all I get is pills. Nobody else understands. Nobody wants to talk to me. I go on this flight with my grandfather, and it saves me. Which is interesting to hear that story today, which is National Suicide Prevention Day. We don't realize who out there has these struggles. These men and women of the greatest generation have had them all their lives. War is hell. I have no idea what it's like. I've never been there. But these men and women who then are over there now coming back, while Honor Flight doesn't do anything for them particularly because of our mission, this is the kind of thing that we do. We connect them with that generation. This grandson got to connect with his grandfather and tell stories and hear stories. And it was amazing that he says Honor Flight saved his life. This is what it means to our generation, our greatest generation. They come home to their communities. They're able to tell their stories. We have people who, again, come home and say, I had no idea Grandpa was at Iwo Jima. I had no idea that my grandfather was in the Pacific. His friends were killed at Pearl Harbor. He joined and he went. They had no idea. And they come home and they connect with us and they say, this is amazing. It obviously means the world. So my call to us as storytellers, as a younger generation with so much power at our hands. We have social media, we have the internet, we have these networking things, we have all this power at our hands to tell stories. And sure, it's great telling stories for your business, making a life for you and your family. That's wonderful. But what if we started to tell stories about these men and women and connected? So my call, which I love inbound and the giving nature, Charity Water a couple of years ago and last year, Malala this year, it's absolutely amazing. But take a moment when you leave here and look up honorflight.org and see if there's an Honor Flight in your area. Or if it's not Honor Flight, that's fine. There's probably just down the road from you is a senior living center. Go hear their stories. Help us carry that legacy on to the next step, to the next generation. And let's not forget our senior generations. We can't all have our parents move into our houses. Okay. But if you can go connect with somebody through an Honor Flight organization or some other senior generation, it's absolutely amazing. Talonsouthonorflight.org is us. Honor Flight New England if you're in this area, or just honorflight.org to find a hub near you. It's absolutely amazing. I tell you, it's changed our family. My little girls are 9 and 10, and for the last 2 years, they've been at every one of our flights. When I go out now and they see a World War II veteran hat or a Vietnam veteran hat, they go up and they shake their hands and they say, thank you for your service. And it's just an absolutely amazing way to make a difference without having to do much. For me, it's no big deal to go up and shake a veteran's hand and say, thank you for what you've done. And it means the world to them, especially when it's that World War II generation, our greatest generation. So thank you for your time. Again, my call is to please go connect with Honor Flight. Thanks, guys.